What's going on, guys? So you are in for a heck of a cool video. We are going to pit two very popular portable air compressors up against each other, and we're going to see which one comes out on top. Now, to the left, you have a Viair product, which is very popular in the RV community and the off-road community and just about every community. Viair is kind of a staple in the air compressor industry for portable compact air compressors. Bulldog Winch now has air compressors as well. And what we've done here is we've pulled Viair's most popular RV setup, and we're going to pit it against the new most powerful Bulldog Winch's air compressor. Let's get these pulled out of the bag and go over the specs. Okay, so we have them both unboxed. This is the Viair. This specific setup is the 400p RVS automatic portable air compressor. This one right here is the Bulldog Winches, and this specific model number is the V450 HD portable air compressor. Now, right off the bat, you can tell, just obviously, the Bulldog is physically a much larger air compressor. But not only is it much larger, it actually has dual compressors on it. So you have one on each side right here versus the Viair. Now, this compressor is also a bit more expensive than the Viair setup, and there's one other big giant feature that this one has that's really gonna help us understand from a performance perspective how well it stacks up against this air compressor. So, from a CFM perspective, which is your airflow, this one pumps out 14.12 CFM whenever you have a single chuck hooked up to it. If you're using dual chucks, it basically splits that down to 7 CFMs per side. Whereas the Viair, on the other hand, is 2.30 CFMs. This specific one, in reality, should not put out nearly the airflow as this one, but it's going to be interesting to see which one actually performs better. Now, even though physically the Bulldog is much larger, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to take up a heck of a lot more space whenever it's in storage. Because if you look at the bags, which house everything, you'll see that the footprint of the bag is roughly the same size. The Bulldog is a little taller, but the overall size, because the Viair has a relatively large platform compared to the Bulldog, there's not a heck of a lot of difference there. The components that are inside of the bag are also a lot different. This one has a coiled style spring cord or hose, and this one has a traditional air compressor style hose that's not coiled up. So you're definitely going to want to take a little bit more care and finesse whenever you put this one away, whereas this one, whenever you're done using it, it should just coil back up and you can put it right there. This one also has a braided protective cover going over the much larger, thicker gauge cable that is used for power, and this looks like it's 7 gauge cable on this one. This right here looks like it might be 12 gauge, maybe 14 gauge cable going to the Viair, which means a few things. First of all, the thicker gauge is because this is going to pull more power. So if you look at actual amp draw, max amperage on this unit is going to be 30 amps. Max amperage on this unit is going to be 95 amps. So you're using roughly 3 times the amperage on the Bulldog system than the Viair. Why is this all important? Because a lot of people might say, hey, it's a no-brainer, let's get this one. But you also want to keep in mind how quickly it's going to discharge your battery, how much power it's going to pull, and again, if it's going to be as convenient to carry around, just because it is much larger, much heavier, even though once it's all packed up, it's roughly the same size. So with me today, I got Jake.
How's it going?
So Jake works for etrailer, and he is one of their content folks on their YouTube channel. And we're going to do something fun, and Jake is helping by volunteering his Homestead fifth wheel for this. Now, the wheels and tires on here are not the original. You put these on, right?
Yes, I did.
And these are tires that you guys carry. These are Provider tires, which are actually pretty good quality tires. He has E-load range tires on here right now. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to drain both tires down, and we're going to see how long it takes for each compressor to get to the respective maximum rating of the tire pressure itself. So the tire pressure rating on this one should be, I'm guessing, around 80 psi. It is, it's 80 psi. So we're going to drop both of these down, and then we'll check them, and we'll probably drop these down to maybe 50 psi each, and then we'll see how quickly each compressor can bring these back up to 80 psi. All right, so let's go ahead and get these hooked up. We'll drain the air out of the tires, get them both down to 50 psi, and then we'll see how long it takes to boost them back up to 80 psi. Okay, so we are at 50 psi on this tire now. That's actually one of the really cool benefits of using this little trigger system that Viair gives you. I love the fact that they include this elongated attachment as well, which is great if you have dually wheels. But yeah, so we lowered it down to 50 psi. We're going to go ahead and start with the Viair system, and we're going to get this thing filled up and see how long it takes. Okay, so Jake is going to go ahead and screw on the valve stem attachment right here. All right, are we on? Okay, so I got my timer, and we're going to go ahead and hit start in 3, 2, 1. Go ahead. Okay. All right, so 3 minutes and 3 seconds roughly. So 3 minutes and 3 seconds got us to just a hair over, and if you look, it's right at 80. So we're just a tiny, tiny hair over. So let's just say 3 minutes. Think that's a fair assessment?
I think so.
All right, so 3 minutes with the Viair 450 RV edition. Now let's go ahead and move to the Bulldog and see how it performs after we drain some air out of this tire. I predict that if the Viair filled this tire up in 3 minutes from 50 to 80, if this performs the way that it kind of claims to perform, just in terms of airflow that's going in, this should be able to fill it up in less than a minute from 30 psi. If it does better than that, that's awesome. If it's any slower than that, I don't specifically know if, to me, it would be a huge advantage to getting this one over the Viair. Is that, I mean, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I agree. It's more weight to lug around. It's very seldom that you're going to have to air up something to this extreme. So most of the time you're just using your air compressor to top off your tires for your vehicle in your RV. So you really don't need, you know, from 0 to 80 psi kind of power. You just need something to top you off with a 10 or 15 with the weather change. And
I guess the other way to look at it is, like, if you have an off-road truck with like big knobby tires and you're taking it out in the sand and you deflate your tires down to like 5 psi, then something like that could come in really handy. But again, if it's not incredibly faster than the Viair, then it's hard to say if it's worth it. So we're gonna connect the Bulldog up and hope to see a much quicker airing application, because if it's any faster than 1 minute, that'll be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Especially, you know, that would be a significant difference, and that's hopefully what we're going to see. Let's go ahead and get the Bulldog hooked up. We'll go from there. Okay, so a few things to notice about how this one works. This is far more advanced than the Viair in terms of what it's capable of doing from like a menu perspective. So you can set the pressure to what you want it to be at, and it will stop when it gets there. So whenever you turn it on, it's going to fill up to max, but then we only want this thing to fill up to 80 psi, so we can actually drop this down to 80 psi, and I believe it'll actually shut off once it gets there. All right, so I also like the fact that even though this doesn't have that super long extension, I like the fact that it has a locking coupler on the end of it to be able to connect it and kind of forget it, which is nice. It also has a braided front attachment to it as well, which is also nice. So we have the droopy tire right here. I'm going to connect it up here. All right, so we're kind of on. You want to hold that on there for me real quick? Okay, so it shows we have a little bit more than 50. I'm going to drain a little bit off with this little button right here, which is super nice. 40. Actually, it has to be a little lower right there. Okay, so we've gone a little bit lower than 50 psi. We're at about 49 psi, which actually makes this an even greater challenge. And Jake's gonna pull his phone out and he's gonna time it on this one. Tell me when you're ready to go.
3, 2, 1, go.
He's still timing it over here too. All right. So we are at 80. What's the timer say? So a minute 31. So a minute and a half to get this one from 50 to 80. It took over 3 minutes, a little over 3 minutes, let's just say a little under. But the reason why we did it this way is because we went a little over 80 with the Viair. We went right at 80 with the Bulldog, but we started a little under 50 with the Bulldog. So it was kind of equals out there. What do you think?
In my personal opinion, I don't think carrying the extra weight around is worth it if you're looking at just an application like this. And its duty cycle is much longer, so if you're wanting to help a bunch of friends out too, like you said earlier, if you're out riding and stuff, chances are you're going to have to do that same thing to 5 or 10 other vehicles.
Yeah.
So that's really where it would come in handy, is if you're using it a lot to do a lot of heavy airing up. But if you're wanting something just for yourself and your equipment, I think the Viair is going to be more than good enough.
So I have the same opinion as Jake, but a little bit different. So in my opinion, the Bulldog is going to be better if you're in a situation where you're airing up tires from very little air to a lot of air. So let's say the tire was completely flat. If you can shave half the time off from filling it up, then that could be significant if you're on the side of the road or if you're in that type of situation. For general RV maintenance, for just getting it ready for a trip, I think the Viair is going to be perfectly fine. If you are going to be off-roading, on the other hand, and you have big tires, 37s, you know, that type of tire, then I would go with the Bulldog, just because I think that having that speed could really, really come in handy. If you don't worry so much about that, if time isn't the issue, the Viair's a dang capable air compressor. So really, that's my take on it. The Viair is a lot more compact, and if you're not going to carry it around in the big cases, the Viair would take up a significantly smaller footprint. From a pricing perspective, the Viair is significantly less expensive than the Bulldog, for sure. So you could easily probably budget for the Viair where you'd have to kind of save for the Bulldog. I like the auto shutoff feature on the Bulldog to where it will automatically stop at the pressure you set it for. I like the fact that it has the dual valves. I mean, if you have heavier duty air compressor needs in a portable environment, then the Bulldog's what you'd want. If you have general air compressor needs in, you know, a remote environment for RV tires, for truck tires, then the Viair is going to be perfect. I mean, I've been using Viair on my truck for the last 4 years, and it hasn't failed. I haven't had any problems. So, you know, it's a very tried and true product. And that's one thing I can't ultimately say about Bulldog, is what's the longevity of it, because it's a relatively new product. But guys, leave a comment below. I'd love to know what your opinion is. I would venture to say that the vast majority of people with onboard air systems are running Viair. Viair they're huge in this marketplace. They own the marketplace of onboard air. But brands like Bulldog are making a really, really strong competitive showing, coming up with an air compressor that is as powerful as this one is, with the capabilities that this one has. Even though it's larger, if this thing's really pumping out 14 CFM, that's pretty dang significant. I mean, that's like air tool level, you know, pressure.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
And I think the higher CFM will really come into play when you get into the higher PSI. So if you're at 100 PSI and you need to get to 110, it's going to take longer. So, you know, with either one of these compressors, to get from 10 to 20 PSI, it'd be fairly quick,
that's
almost
easy.
Instantaneous. But the higher your pressure gets, is the more pressure pushing back on the compressor. So it really relies on those check valves to be able to push it through. So again, if you're airing up, you know, heavy duty stuff, or if you have like a Class A that has 110, 120 PSI tires on it, you may look into getting something a little bit bigger, because it will save you that time.
Yep, and I think another point to add to that is the Viair does go up to 150 PSI, where the Bulldog goes up to 125.
Yep.
So if high pressure is your thing, you're going to be maxed out on the Bulldog with no room above 125 PSI, whereas the Viair is going to give you that extra pressure above it, and that might actually speak a little bit to the quality of the check valve in the Viair to be able to support pressure beyond 125 PSI. But if you're only caring about airflow, the amount of air that you're physically getting out of it at any given time, basically, if I squeeze this handle, the amount of air that's spraying out, Actually, can you press that handle? I want to feel this. That is pretty significant. I mean, watch, I'm going to mess with this air. For a portable air compressor to blow that type of air out is pretty crazy. You know, let's do that on the Viair real quick. Okay, so now we have the Viair. Now, whenever this starts off, there's going to be a lot of pressure built up in this hose. The hose essentially acts as a very small holding tank, so you're going to get a lot of pressure initially. But now the actual constant pressure, let's blow the hair with that one. Yeah, it's significantly less.
Yeah, right off the bat, it's got a quick shot, but it loses it.
Yeah, the airflow is a lot less coming out of here than it is out of the Bulldog. So I don't know if it's truly 14 CFM. That number seems a bit high, but it's significant. That's probably easily 4 times greater than what's coming out of there for normal running. So very, very cool. I may have to do a longer term review on something like this with some air tools, like a nailer or something like that, to just see how well this thing performs. But, you know, if money's no object and I just had to get one because I wanted one, just based off of the performance in the video, I would probably get the Bulldog, to be honest with you. If I was going to save a little bit, get something that will do the job and do it very reliably with a heck of a proven track record, I'd probably get the Viair.
Yep.
You know,
yeah, the Bulldog is nice because it does have all those auto features on it. You can set it to what you want. You know you're not going to overinflate something. But again, if you're just wanting something simple, something that you know has been around for a long time and it's proven itself over the years, the Viair is a great option.
Yep, I agree. Anyways, guys, I will put links in the description of this video to both of these products from eTrailer. Yeah, this thing is super cool, and I think we're the only ones that have actually reviewed this thing so far. So I couldn't find anything else on it. I'm super excited. Maybe I'll do a longer term evaluation of this thing. But guys, either product you get, it's going to be a solid product. They both have good reputations, but Viair's been in the air compressor industry a lot longer than just about anybody else. So yeah, definitely a legacy there, whereas we're still going to see how this one performs in the long run. Guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment. Jake, thanks again for letting us deflate and inflate your tires. That was super cool of you. Anyways, we're going to talk to you again very soon.